Welcome back. We have Catherine Glen Foster, president of Americans United for Life, joining us to unpack the Roe v. Wade decision and actually the climate surrounding the abortion issue in America in general. Catherine, again, thank you so much for joining me. In May, in very early May, the Supreme Court decision was leaked. And, there are many concerns around the leaking of such a confidential decision. I think many folks around the world were wondering if the decision would change in that time or if anything would change. Clearly it didn't. It was overturned, and that should have its own investigation. But according to the Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America, there have been 49 incidents of arson, vandalism, and harassment committed by pro-choice activists. Since that decision, when there was the hint that this would be overturned, violence against establishments, pregnancy centers, that kind of thing, just skyrocketed. How has your experience been in that regard?
They listed 49 instances. If you include all of the different threats, the emails, the phone calls, all of that, the number is actually far higher, tragically. It's been disappointing to see the reaction to just even a leak, even a plan of a decision. And we know that some of these threats and attacks have been severe, very severe. We're talking Molotov cocktails. We're talking about, firebombing. We're talking about spray painting churches, things like that. These people going into churches and trying to take off their clothes and protest, and just, horrible kinds of displays of the basest type of human behavior. But there's been so much more as well, just threats and so on. And what I think has been really interesting is that the people who are doing this, they have no desire to dialogue. They have no desire to build a bridge or build understanding or work together to find common ground for the future and to help women. In fact, I was just talking about this with some colleagues yesterday, that you would think that this would be the instigator to start talking about how to resource these young women and how to improve our social safety nets and so on. And yet instead, all we're hearing from the other side is codify Roe. That's the only answer.
Well, and when you say, be prepared for a night of rage, when you hear this coming out, and to me, this is the unhinged left. I mean, a night of rage. This is absurd. And hearing about these acts of arson and violence and trespassing and harassment, it's quite disturbing. Is there a double standard? Is the FBI or the police handling this violence properly? Does the violence also go the other way? Are pro-lifers, have they been historically violent when Roe v. Wade passed?
Not at all. When you look at when Roe v. Wade passed, what did pro-lifers do? We joined peacefully to march for life. When Planned Parenthood v. Casey came down, and we thought that Roe would be overturned after almost 20 years at that point. And then we were disappointed. We continued to march. We continued peaceful, nonviolent protest. That's what we've always been about, because we're pro-life. The other side, they'll point to a couple of fringe people who were not part of the movement, who used the abortion issue to commit terrible crimes. But that simply is not what the movement is. And so this whole idea of a night of rage, now that this Dobbs has been the case that Casey wasn't, we're going to continue to march for life. We're going to continue to work to protect and support women and get them those resources they need. We're going to be expanding our care. And I think it's disappointing that any Americans would resort to just, burning down cities or, shouting or, anything like that, just because they're disappointed in a decision.
So is the American culture, are you ready for this kind of change? I mean, it says culture might be, you change the law, you could change the hearts. Are we now going back where we can expect Americans to now say, you know what, no, we're not comfortable with abortion. We don't want something like Roe v. Wade again.
It goes both ways, law and culture, right? Both inform each other. And so this is a huge step forward. As I said, most Americans, even though they don't really understand what Roe v. Wade was, and they don't really understand the state of abortion law, when you ask them, they for the in huge numbers, 90% of Americans understand and agree that an abortion ends the life of a human being in the womb before birth. 90% of Americans, 75% wanted abortion rolled back at least to the 12-week mark, which would put us in line with, sadly, not Canada, but with most of the world. We were right alongside
Sorry,
you
I'm going to
being one.
pause you right there, and we're going to talk about Canada in just a few moments.